Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. It's Tuesday, so I hope you had a good day and how things are going. How are things going for you?
Oh, things are going great. You know, as our listeners know, we tape these ahead of time a little bit, so the timing is a little off. But so we just wrapped up Labor Day weekend up here and had a stunningly beautiful weekend. I know I shared with you we'd be going to Woodsy Stock.
Yeah.
And there was just a great group from his mansion up there, and Tom Ewing came out and led worship. Beautiful weekend. Had a lot of fun to be had around here, and just being with the group of people out on the mountaintop overlooking the lake. You know, you've been there before. It's a great setting. So we had a fun weekend.
Beautiful. Yeah. And did you enjoy your pool with the kids on Monday?
So you would have thought so. Actually, Dan broke my heart on Monday. And because we have officially moved to where the evenings are dropping to like in the 50s, we turned the pool heater off. So, and I am a heat snob. If the pool is not 84 degrees, I do not get in it.
Oh my.
So yeah. So whereas there were some neighborhood kids who came down and swam, I will no longer dip my toe in the pool because it is not warm. But it was a great weekend. We did some hiking. We did a lot of projects around the house, went up to the mountains, like I said. How about you guys? What'd you do?
We had some guests that we were with. Had a great, kind of meals together, both on Sunday and Monday, and drove around. We drove around in the mountains as well. So we had a great little mini trip up there, and really enjoyed that. So we had a very, very nice, relaxing weekend.
Yeah, I tell you, we did have gorgeous weather here, though. It was, mid 70s and sunny, and just enough. The evenings had that crisp, cool kind of fall feel, and it's put me in the mood for football for sure. This next weekend, I think I shared with you, we're going out to Maryland to see the Air Force Navy game.
That'd be fun.
For the 20th anniversary of September 11th.
Right.
So looking forward to that.
Is that going to be in West Point?
It's down to Annapolis.
Yep,
down there. So it'll be a great game. We're going to the AOG tailgate and meeting up with some college friends, and then my son Josh and his wife Emily will meet us out there and go to the game as well. So we are looking forward to it. Go Falcons!
Yeah. In October, I've been invited to the USC Colorado Buffalo game. So.
Oh, nice.
We've been followers of Colorado for a long time. We used to go to all the home games when they won the national championship, which is really quite fun. And I graduated from USC, so with my MBA. So that'll be a fun game to go to. And tonight, I'm going to a racetrack. It's a race. Path where the two cars go next to each other.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to be driving a race car tonight.
Any idea what kind of car you're driving?
They didn't say yet what it's going to be. I think it's I don't think it's a Formula One. I think it's like a stock car type thing.
Okay.
And we go to this.
Will it be a straightaway, or will you actually navigate curves?
No, it's called Vandermeer State Speedway. And that's where the two cars line up on a straightaway and just floor it and try to win,
Oh, how fun.
So I don't know if I'll have both of us going at the same time or timing us or whatever, but
right.
They said get ready to drive, and I'm ready to drive.
That's
I
great. Now,
love.
was this a gift somebody gave you or just something you planned for yourself or?
It's a group that is sponsoring. I think it might be a benefit of some kind. So
Oh, excellent. Some kind of
probably I
fundraiser.
probably have to write a check at the end of it, but it was an invitation of,
Oh, how
hey, we're going to
fun.
have a group of people. We'd love you to come and be part of this. So I'm going to be part of it. So
Oh, good for you.
it'll be fun. I'll let you know, and hopefully I survive it. But the one thing I like is driving fast. So
Yeah,
um,
I've heard you talk about that
yeah,
before. I try not to get nervous when I hear that. The mom
yes,
in me wants to tell you not to, but that's
yeah,
okay. I know you enjoy it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm good at it too.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, we've been talking about God's will, um, and we spent a lot of time working through the issue of surrender,
Mhm.
and that in order for the Spirit to guide us, which is what we all want,
Right.
and as we've talked about it, it's a step by step. Come and follow me as I guide you on the path. And the
Right.
path means we're on steps. So that if we change our viewpoint, a couple things about God's will. One, we tend to say, I have a question, or I have a decision, or I have a thing that I'd like to know. Could you just tell me the answer?
Mhm.
And we look at it more as what I call a milestone or an event. Okay,
Mhm.
give me that answer, and then I'll take it from there. And God says, well, my will is really the rest of your life along a path.
Right.
There will be these moments where you'll get specific. Take this fork in the road, because that's what's going to happen. We got all these forks in the road.
Mhm.
Okay, take this. This is what's going to happen. Yes, this is a conclusion of this moment, but you got to keep walking, because there
Mhm.
is always next. So we got to look at it differently, and then instead of just give me the punchline, it's I'm going to walk with you, God, and let you guide me step by step by step. And we're going to talk a little bit about this today, particularly about it's all around truth.
Mhm.
Is let me show you the truth that will help you understand. Okay, this is the right next step. This is the right next step. And that as we look at His will, it's really more, Kathy, of what God wants to do for us,
Right.
and not what I do. I do have to be obedient, because I have to think of
Mhm.
it. I got to be in the right place at the right time with the right people
Mhm.
for Him to fulfill what He's going to do. And by the way, and this is what's a little bit kind of really wonderful, is that it is not a set thing. Rather, it's a responsive thing as we walk down the path. Why? Well, because we're in a wicked world. We have
Mhm.
an enemy that's working to thwart it and going to throw stuff at us. So he's going to throw, what I call hand grenades at us and obstacles. And then we're dealing with self-centered people.
Right.
So, and it's dependent on their will and how they respond to us. So that when we look at God's will, it's not about, well, He's going to force everything to happen, and all we do is just, well, whatever. And that's called Christian
Mhm.
fatalism, by the way. Whatever. He says, no, walk with me. And every day, I'm so sovereign, God speaks. It doesn't matter what the world throws at you. It doesn't matter
Right.
what self-centered people do. It doesn't matter that you didn't listen to me.
Mhm.
And you kind of walk a little bit away from my path. He says, um, today, I can deliver my will.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing of it. So that as we look at it differently, he said the key to the whole thing, you have to surrender your will to mine. God
Yeah.
speaking. He said there's no other way. I can't deliver to you any other way. If you decide I'm going to go off and do my own thing in any way, well, I think, or hey, I got the big
Mhm.
question. I'll take it from here. He said, well, you're going to wind up walking away from me because you just went back to the flesh. You put to death the very power that I have to deliver to you my will. You're at enmity against me and you cannot please me. Romans 8, 5 to 8. So he says that the key is always surrender.
Yeah. It's interesting. Even as you say that, I'm reminded just a couple of days ago in my time with Jesus, I was drawn this week for whatever reason. Sometimes I'll pick up different versions of the Bible just to kind of have a fresh perspective on things. And God was leading me to pull out my amplified version. And he led me to the verse Romans 8:14. And the amplified version says it really, this is surrender, and it speaks it so beautifully. It says, for all who are allowing themselves to be led by God are sons of God.
Yes.
And it's such a beautiful picture of what that surrender looks like. It's just, allowing him to lead, and then truly that is absolutely wrapped up and partnered with us being sons and daughters of his.
Right.
That's part of that. And it's a beautiful picture,
Yeah,
right?
it really is. Yeah, and that's why we spend so much time on going through Gethsemane, surrender. Jesus said, I only came to do the will of the Father. And because of him living in us, we still have that same power that if we are going to walk and live in his kingdom and in his will, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, he said the requirement is you have to surrender, deny self, take up the cross, and follow me. And we always ask, well, when? And his answer is all the time.
Right, right.
That it's day by day, moment by moment, hour by hour, and you can't make a single decision and say, I surrendered. He said, well, because of our nature, which is a default back to the flesh, all the time we have to go through that surrender, that going to neutrality. So as a couple, by the way, or as a family, would urge everybody to keep thinking that way and to ask each other, are you neutral? Are you surrendered? Not as a hammer, just that if you're not, okay, that's okay. Why don't you spend some time and work through going to neutrality, going through surrendering your will, and then God will be able to guide us, and it's going to be best and none better. So we help each other, again, not out of you better or get with it. It's rather, are you?
Right.
If you're not.
And in that place is freedom. So
Yes.
when we give each other those reminders, we actually were just talking about this in my ladies group this morning. One of my sweet friends, we were talking about the difference really in her 2 years ago and now, and how scheduled and controlled and concise everything was. And she's like, I have so learned to let go of things because I have witnessed the power of surrender and what he has done. And when I have learned to let go of that control is when I see him show up in the most beautiful ways, and I just take the next step. And watching it unfold, we've all seen it unfold on her life, and to hear her talk about how it's unfolded on her life, you can just see in her spirit, literally physically in her countenance, how much more free she is than she was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then as we surrender, he says that another key kind of a foundational piece is let me speak to you and know that what I'm going to reveal to you and guide you into is called truth. And the truth here isn't just theological truth or spiritual truth. It's the truth about your situation as you're facing things. What is the truth? Because his will is going to be revealed through that truth.
Right.
And so we look at it, it's something that we need to keep trying to understand, is that as I'm looking at this, business opportunity or this house or whatever, I'll give you a simple example. Linda and I we had sold one of our, actually an extra home that we had, and we were going to flip it into what's called a 1031 exchange, where if you buy another home, which we would rent out, then you don't have to pay any taxes on it. And what it is it defers your capital gain. and you get all that money to flip it into what's called the like exchange.
Okay.
So we're looking at this house, and we found one that was in a foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So it was incredibly cheap because the bank was just trying to dump it,
Right.
and it needed remodeling. And so we look at it, and we're investigating it, and we walk downstairs, and we notice this gigantic crack in the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, Father, and see, we would like to just say, well, am I supposed to do this or not?
Mm-hmm.
And God says, well, and we're going to go into this. I'm going to ask you to go into an ask, seek, and knock mode. I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that is find the truth out about it. Okay, so we have a big crack in the foundation. It's everything else about it is super attractive. So I would like to buy the house,
Right.
but I don't know about this crack. Okay, so what do I do? Well, I call an engineer, and we'll talk about this again later. But I get the very best engineer I can find,
Mm-hmm.
and see at that point I don't really even qualify him as whether he's a believer or an unbeliever. What I qualify at that point, because this is a technical advisor,
Mm-hmm.
I need the very best.
Right. And somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in it, right?
No
So that
vested
you don't
interest.
get any bias.
He
Yeah.
doesn't care one iota what the answer is. I'm just going to tell you the truth.
Right.
And by the way, I'm going to pay for that. I'm going to pay your fee.
Mm-hmm.
You do your research, and you come and tell me, is this foundation okay,
Mm-hmm.
or does it need major renovation?
Right.
Because of and it was more already, as we're looking at this, there's two issues. One is if it's a major renovation, well, then I'm going to have to pay a lot more money and probably wouldn't make it as attractive. But mostly, Linda and I had already discussed this, is we don't want to take the time necessary to go do that work, because it takes energy to go do that. So we already knew if this is a major problem, then God's showing us the truth. Nah, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what Linda and I wanted to know is the truth. What's the
Right.
truth? So we hire this guy. He goes and investigates it, comes back, writes a report, and he says actually it's just cosmetic. It'll only cost you $1,000 to do a small stuff. Your foundation structurally is in great shape, no problem. You got a cosmetic issue, and here's what you need to do to take care of that. Okay, great. We got that piece of truth. Now you can go further, and it didn't mean just because we got that truth that it meant, okay, great, we're doing the deal. No.
Right.
We just got one more piece of truth to continue down that path, and we had a bunch of other things we had to have happen.
Yeah. That's interesting what you point out right there. So I just want to highlight it and then let you finish your story. But a lot of times that's where we miss it. Something like that, and okay, we got the expert and then we got the go ahead. That must mean God means yes. And I get to quit asking anything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't. It just means.
So yeah, continue on and talk through that a little
just
bit,
means
because I
you're-
do think we get stuck there.
Yeah, it just means you're clear to go to the next step, and
Yeah.
so then we had the house now fully inspected, which we got again clearance on. That could have stopped it, and then we have to work now with the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a broker representing the bank, and so we have my broker. We've passed all that, and we get ready now to finalize an offer. We get a call from the other broker, who says, I've resigned this listing from this bank, so you can't make an offer. I said, well, they still want to sell it, right? He said, I don't know. I guess so, but I don't represent him. I said, well, who's the lender? I'm not telling you. Tough, you're not going to get it. So we were a little bit disheartened that
Yeah, I'd say a little bit.
well, again, the question wasn't like, well, I got to plow through this. It was, well, Father, what do you have to say about this? Is this you stopping this? Which we're completely fine with, because we were truly neutral. Now, we'd spend some time and money, and that we felt okay about that. Even if the answer is no, see, and I've learned this. I wouldn't have gone back and said, well, since it's no, why would you have me go down that path?
Right.
Why don't you just tell me earlier in the process? And what I always understand is that God says a couple of interesting things. Isaiah 55. My ways are not your ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts. He says, through that process of you investigating things, I'm teaching you something. I'm showing you some things. So don't look at how come I didn't. Realize I did, and there's a purpose for that. And embrace what I'm doing, even though you went down this path, and then the answer was no. And by the way, a lot of times it has to do with timing. I actually needed you to be occupied so that you weren't go jump at something else, because the other something else wasn't ready yet. So, relax. And so we do. So we got this problem. And trying to understand truth. So, Father, what do I do? And he says, well, a banker, a high up level banker in Chicago, call the guy and see what he says. Okay, so I call the guy. I said, I'm trying to buy this house. It's in foreclosure. I don't know who the banker is. I know the address. He said, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. So he evidently could get on a computer and find out something. He says, the bank is a bank in New York City, and they own that property.
Interesting. Okay.
And he says, they're a bank that is not really, it's more of an investment type operation than a regular checking bank. He said they're very difficult to get a hold of. So I tell you what, let me make a phone call for you, and I'll try to connect you with the guy that can handle this house. Okay? So 2 days later, he said, I got the guy. Here's his number. He's waiting for you to call him. Go talk to him. So we call him up. Hey, we're looking at this house. They said, yeah, we've had a lot of problems with this house, and the broker quit. And he said, but let's do a deal. So we wound up processing a deal through the whole thing, because God says, I can overcome things that are in the way, and I'll guide you step by step by step based upon the truth of all that. And the truth, by the way, could have been, the house is done. You're not gonna be able to get it, or don't waste your time. It's gonna take too much effort, too much time. And see, as you surrender your will, Kathy, you look at it completely differently. And that is that I can hardly wait to see how this plays out, including that God's answer is no. And my Linda, my reaction would have been, hallelujah. Thank you. What's next? Now what? See? Not, oh gosh, I wish it would have happened. How come it didn't happen? What did I do wrong? How come you took me down this path and said no? I look at God's will as an exciting adventure, day by day, step by step, and I can hardly wait to see how it's going to go. And he said one of the keys is what I'm going to reveal to you is based upon truth. Always have a heart to receive the truth.
Yeah. And I love the reason that you could do that so confidently, though, isn't that from birth, all of a sudden you were just able to trust this. These are things that God has grown in you over time, and you have had some probably failures at along the way, too, that you have learned from. I think back to personally a few years ago, a time that I wonder how many, it's probably been 3 or 4 years now, but that God called Dan and I out of faith. We were getting a new vehicle for me, and felt like it was the time we were supposed to, but we had a minivan that was still in great condition and could bless somebody. And he told us, "You're not to sell it," as we abided on it. He's like, "You're not to sell it. You are to donate it to the Seacoast Family Promise Group,
Mm.
that helps families that are homeless, and in giving them a vehicle that enables a lot of them to get back on their feet. They have some phenomenal programs to really put families back together and equip them to get out of homelessness and break the cycle. But anyway, so we really felt this is what we're supposed to do, and we are excited about stepping in, doing exactly what he said. We bought our car, we donated it. We hear from the family they're going to give it to, and they gave us the whole background on this guy and the struggles that he had had, and just what a beautiful opportunity, because this was going to allow him to work. And we're feeling so good and affirmed because the outcome looked like what we thought the outcome would look like if we were obedient.
Mm.
Fast forward like 2 weeks maybe, and I read an article in the paper of a horrible accident on 101 right around from us, and this black minivan Honda Odyssey had been completely totaled.
Wow.
But the airbags saved the passengers, they were fine,
Mm.
but it had been totaled. And then I get a note from them letting me know, by the way, that was your vehicle. The family is perfectly fine, but just wanted you to know. And my
Oh, wow.
immediate thing was, wait a second, God, we sacrificed a really expensive car. I've been like, I was now, let me get that straight. I was very thankful that the family was okay, but it was a little bit of a crisis of faith for me, in that I hear you right? Was that really what you said? Why in the world would you tell me to do that? And then it didn't even get them more than 2 weeks of work. Wasn't that a waste, God? Why did you waste money, God? I mean, these are really questions that I wrestled with him on. And so in that, it was a process of kind of working with him, and he came around to basically teach me. He's like, I want you to see, one, it's not always all about you. Yeah, so there is that. But another big lesson he taught me, and that was, I am bigger than the finances of things. There are other things that I'm working, and I needed you to see that surrender to my will has nothing to do with the outcome. Nothing to do with the outcome. I want you to learn to say, yes, I can replenish and replace that at a snap of a finger. So don't you worry about that. I was teaching you to say yes, regardless of consequences.
Yes.
But that
Wow.
was a learned thing. I didn't go there immediately and have this pretty picture like you and Linda were able to step through that process. I spiraled a little bit on what did I hear? What did I do? Was that right? And he had to reaffirm and then teach me, and show me that it was bigger than what I thought it was all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you do that, it is a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
That there's going to be times where there's going to be, I thought it was this,
Mm-hmm.
and then it turns out not to be at all, which is then a big question of, well, how come? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Did I miss something? And he's saying, well, I'm just teaching you some things. Let me help you understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me have you trust me. Let me help you see a bigger story of this. And in the Bible, it's called being guided,
Mm-hmm.
or taught. And that means that it's not, look, just do what I tell you to do and be quiet. It's walk with me. Let me
Mm-hmm.
teach you. And he teaches you, like you experience, is, well, wait a second, this whole thing didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
He says, yeah, I know. Let me help you process that, because I need to teach you something that then will carry you the next time and the next
Right.
time and the next time. You'll start to see how it really works, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll be okay with it. So, like, that's how Linda and I learned. Is like, well, gosh, we spent all this energy, all this time, and it was yes, 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 and then no. Um, that didn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me show you something. And then we kept understanding, because we experienced it, that God's will is best and none better.
Right.
All the time. See, all the time. So When we really understood that, then it became easier
Yes.
to follow, even when it didn't make sense, or even
Yep.
when, I'm going down this path, you're giving me open doors, open doors, open doors, which we'll talk about. Doesn't mean the final answer could be just another hallway. um, and then you said no, and I have to go this way. Why didn't you just have me go that way in the first place? Well, son, I'm teaching you things. It was timing. This wasn't ready yet. I'm doing so many things at once with people, with situations, I got to get everything lined up. And by the way,
Right.
the domino you're going to hit today has eternal consequences.
Right.
So begin to realize. So we'll talk about this understanding, but he said it's based on truth. So Kathy, if you'd read John 12:42-50, Jesus makes an interesting statement about truth. John 12:42-50.
Nevertheless, many, even of the authorities, believed in him. But for fear of the Pharisees, they did not confess it, so that they would not be put out of the synagogue, for they loved the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. And Jesus cried out and said, whoever believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And whoever sees me sees him who sent me. I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. If anyone hears my words and does not keep them, I do not judge him. For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. The one who rejects me and does not receive my words has a judge. The word that I have spoken will judge him on the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who has sent me has himself given me a commandment, what to say and what to speak. And I know that his commandment is eternal life. What I say, therefore, I say as the Father has told me.
Yeah. So one thing as he ends this, he says, my words are eternal life. Now he's not talking about what a lot of the evangelical community takes is, well, the Bible is all geared to give us a ticket to heaven, an event, what they call eternal life. And Jesus defined it actually for us in John 17:3. He said, this is eternal life, that you know, and the word there, know, is intimately experience all that is the Father and all that is the Son. When in your life now that I'm going to give you this life and give it to you super abundantly. So that when he ends this, he says, now remember that my words is what's going to determine you're experiencing the life of God throughout life now. He said, so get that settled. Okay. And then he makes a statement. He says, I haven't come to judge you. The word there is, I haven't come per se to make judgments on your behalf or for you or against you. He said, actually, what is going to judge you is my words. So what he's saying here is that what's going to judge you is my words, which are reflecting truth.
Right.
I'm going to speak the truth, and that alone is going to judge you, so that he says, my word stands on its own and is absolute. So that this is where the beautiful logos that we have, the scriptures, he says you can count, first of all, on that being true. It's absolutely true, and your reaction to that truth will determine whether it judges you or not. So think of a sword, and it's called a double-edged sword.
Right.
It's sharp on both sides, and that is that if you cut down, it'll separate, and you can be blessed by this. If you follow the word, the sword, you'll be blessed. If you choose not to, it cuts the other way, and you're going to be cursed. He said that's what's going to judge you. He said, I haven't come to judge you, but what I speak, which by the way, the Father the vine
has
dresser,
given him everything to speak, right?
is you speak, this is what you speak to Rich.
Mm-hmm.
This is his word. And remember, we talked about it starts with logos.
Right.
Here's the truth. Okay, how do I process that truth? And then I'm going to give you rhema action, like we had the situation with that house. And what do? We got to crack in the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Go hire an expert. Okay, that's God speaking rhema.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could have said, well, I really want to buy this house. So what? So what if it costs a lot of money? So what? I'm going to go do it.
That may not end so well.
No, I may not. And I've had situations where I can easily share that. So that he said, well, I spoke it to you,
Mm-hmm.
but you rejected what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And you determined that it didn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would have a consequence from that. And that's why he says, my words are gonna show you, and I'm gonna reveal to you the truth about this situation, the truth about your hearts, the truth about what I say about this and what I would like to do next relative to just what happened. And it's always going to be based on truth, so that we would have a passion to always pursue the truth and never not be interested in,
Right.
well, what is the truth about this, about the situation? Is that crack really that way? Is this house something I'm supposed to buy? Is this business I'm supposed to get into? Is this a relationship that I should have? And God said, well, I'll show you the truth about that if you have a heart to receive it, because the truth, will set you free. And then he speaks a little bit further about this. Go to John 3, 21 to 22.
But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. After this, Jesus and his disciples went into the Judean countryside, and he remained there with them and was baptizing.
Yeah. So as he brought the truth, he said, you're coming to, what did he describe there? The light.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see there as the light? What does the light mean? If you're coming to the light, what does that mean?
That means things are being revealed to you.
Yeah.
It's no longer in darkness. It's not secret. You're seeing clearly.
Right. And so if you're in the light and you see clearly, you begin to realize, oh, now I see. See?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got, okay, I see the truth about that. Why? Well, because I've come to the light. I've had a heart to walk into the light, which is what? Revealing the truth. So that this is where we do what was called our due diligence, our seeking, is, okay, I got an issue, we'll go investigate it. And see, we're walking into the light because God says, well, let me reveal to you the truth about it. I'll give you another example. In a company that my kids and I owned, and we were operating in the medical business, we were going to hire a new accountant. And we always pray, show us the truth. Show us the truth. We're open to the truth. We're never going to not receive the truth.
That's good, yeah.
And by the way, it never matters when that comes, even what I call the last minute. So it's not like, okay, got it, I'm going to go do it. It's like, if you got something else to show us, we'd like to receive it. So we're interviewing. We do. This person's going to move here from Minnesota. Looks qualified. We like the guy. We've done reference checking, and we're all at the moment we're all in agreement, and we think spiritually in agreement that we should hire this guy. So we have him down for his final interview, and we all thought he passed it. And again, we talked about this. My son, who was the head of finance, is going to take him out to lunch and finalize information, truth, and then after that we'd make him an offer. So he said, I'm going to go take him out. And the three of us, my daughter and Peter and I, got together, and we said, Father, if you have more truth to show us, we're open to it. If you want to either confirm or show us that something's not right here. Okay, so he takes him to lunch. I get a phone call from Peter and says, well, we're not hiring this guy.
Interesting.
I said, why? I said, he said, well, I'm talking to him. And I said, hey, we're excited about you coming. We're looking forward to maybe having you come down. And, what are your long-term plans? He just asked a question, what are your long-term plans? And this, Kathy, is something that you'll be dumbfounded at. The guy says, my plan is to have you move me to Denver. I'll work for you for about 6 months, and then I'm going to go find a job that pays more.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. I mean, he said it right straight up.
I wonder if he wanted to just capture those words and bring them back.
It was, and see, we received that as God saying, now, normally, nobody would say that.
No, that was absolutely God intervening.
He's just, I'm going to have this guy speak the truth. And you realize that, no, you're not going to hire this guy because his motive isn't right. He's using you to come because he doesn't think you're paying him enough money, and he wants to make more. He just wants a trip down to Denver. He wants to move to Denver. So, okay. So that we came to the light. Our heart, as we seek God's will, is always to go to the light. And it doesn't matter. And see, I've stopped trying to figure out, well, how come we spent all this time with this guy when the answer was no? Right. Wouldn't it have been easier just to up front just say, no, there's something not right here? And he didn't even check our spirits. So the two things, and you kind of mentioned it, is whenever those things happen, it's not to say, well, I didn't like that, or how come that happened, or why not? It's, okay, Father, what are you revealing to us? And the answer we got two specific answers. One, I want you, Rich and kids, to always, all the way through, always go to the light and never be afraid of it.
Oh, that's good.
And so don't predetermine, okay, I got enough light. Let me tell you, I can show you more light, more truth. Always go the whole way. And
that's really good.
Yeah. And then two is that while you were processing this, what did you guys learn about the person, the kind of person you needed? And we discussed it and said, well, now that we've gone through this, we see there's a couple more elements that would be ideal if we really hired the person. And he said, yeah, okay, you got that. Now take what you just learned, another piece of truth, and interview slightly differently. Look for a slightly different person, because I have that person for you. And by the way, that person wasn't ready to come yet, but they're gonna. Okay. So that we realize that we're learning something specific about this hiring. That we got it, and never be afraid of the truth, no matter when. And we learned that through that experience. So the beauty again of God's will is it's based upon truth. Do you have a heart to come to the light? I'll reveal to you truth and process that truth, particularly together with you and your spouse, you and a friend, you and a group, where somebody can say, well, wait a second, seems like what we just found out means we shouldn't be doing this, or we should go a different way, or he's reinforcing, hey, you know what, we just got confirmed that this is a good thing. And your view of truth is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Right. And it's always based upon, the truth of what I'm saying, what God is saying. Give you another example. And I remember we talked about God's will being progressive. Right. Working with a CEO, he had lost his job and he's looking for a new one. And he had time because he had severance, so he was in good shape. So we weren't in any rush, and he wanted to know God's will.
Right.
So we processed together with he and his spouse, and one of the things that they talked about was what was the desires of their heart as it relates to the dynamics of it. So they talked, they had young kids. So they said, in order for us to be a faithful married couple and parents, we really, I can't travel more than 2 nights away every other week.
Right.
Because I got to be home. And that's important, and God said that's important, and we agree that that's important. And so we're settled with that. Okay, good. And I asked he and his wife both, are you confident that you now have that truth understood? Yes.
And once you're confident, that becomes a sieve that you can filter other things through.
Right. So as soon as they said that, he gets a job offer within a week for a company, pays him twice as much money as he's ever made in his life, traveling 5 nights a week every week. And he came to me and said, well, we're going to reconsider this. And I said, why? He said, well, because with all the money we're going to make, I can hire a nanny and, et cetera, and look at what we can do for God and tithing. And I said, wait a second. What truth do you and your wife already know? Well, we're not supposed to travel more than 2 nights every other week. I said, well, this doesn't fit that. I said, your answer, you don't even have to pray about it. The answer is no. Why? Well, because God's given you truth already. See? It's progressive. And like you said, it now sets the stage that the next piece of the stepping, the pathway, is based upon that truth. You've already gone down that fork.
Yeah, you've got a filter now.
Yeah. And so he struggled with that. Yeah, but I said, well, is your wife in unity? No. Well, I think not. And do you believe? And here's the question. See, I flipped it on him. Do you believe that God's going to provide you a great job with those requirements? Oh, yeah, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Okay, so why don't you process that, and you got to stand on the truth. And so they came back. He said, okay, you know what? I think I was looking at this wrong. I haven't been willing to wait for God's answer, and this was a test. And I'm supposed to say no. So he said no. Within 2 weeks, he got a job offer for traveling 2 nights a week every other week. Interesting enough, the same money as the first offer, twice as much money as he's ever made in his life.
Beautiful.
And God said, how'd I do? Do you understand how that my will, you could have stopped short and taken that other job, and you would have been miserable, and you wouldn't have fulfilled my will at all, because my will is based upon the truth of what I'm giving you step by step by step. So
that's beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing, and that's why we need each other to keep reminding us. So wait a second, didn't God already say something about this? Then why would you go off in a different way? And what I see happen is that everybody goes back, what I call back to the beginning. I'm going down this path, and I got this new opportunity, particularly financially. Okay, well, I'm going to go back to the beginning and say, I'm going to start all over. And am I supposed to do this? And I rationalize why. And I said, you don't even need to do that, because you already know that the answer. You've already been given a piece of truth. No, you're not supposed to travel every night for your family.
Right.
Accept the truth. So this process of the truth is so critical to understanding it. So as we finish our time here today, if you have a question about it, and maybe a specific, you might have a situation that you're trying to uncover and say, well, here's what I've received so far. Here's what I'm looking at. How do I understand truth? Certainly email us at on the YouTube comments, or questions at afjministry.com, and send them in. We'd be happy to bring them on the air or talk to you about them personally, because this is a big deal. We got to really understand how we process truth, which will lead us to God's will. So we'll pick it up again tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a great discussion. Thanks so much for sharing. I love hearing the real life examples of how it plays out as
Yeah,
well. I
yeah,
think
that's
that's
good.
good for our learning
Yeah,
process,
it is
all of
good.
us.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us, everyone. We love that you are listening and passing this on to your friends. We look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
Yep, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.